Pablo Picasso once said, "Good artists copy, while great artists steal." It's why every time that I walk into Target, I just grab something from the dollar section, just to remind myself that I'm a great artist. But this comes from the idea that the best artists out there, the people that love their craft the most, look at other great artists around them, find out what they're doing well, and then steal those ideas for themselves. Well, I've been out playing Lord of the Rings Online on my stream, and I've also, on the side, been playing a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV. And I think that Lord of the Rings Online and Standing Stone Studios could learn a lot from the great artists over at Final Fantasy XIV and in Square Enix. I think there are some things that Square Enix does and Final Fantasy does that just make sense. They work for gamers and they fit into the mold of 2022 gaming, especially those of us that have jobs, families, kids, all of those things that I think Standing Stone Studios can really learn from and make LOTRO a better place for the players. Now, I know what you're thinking right away. Standing Stone doesn't have nearly the budget of Square Enix, and you would be absolutely right. I don't think that Standing Stone needs to go and make a brand new game, destroy their game kind of like Final Fantasy did in the very beginning, and then make something brand new. No, but I think that there are some easy to implement things, some ways to adjust the game a little bit that would allow Lord of the Rings Online players who really love the game to play the game in a more full way. Now, the next natural question to me is, why compare these two games? They're two very different games. One, of course, with Final Fantasy is an Eastern-style story-driven MMO, while the other one is a fully Western-style MMO that actually comes from one of the greatest works of Western literature. These two games seem to be so very opposite. Final Fantasy is a game that would seem to not work with a really large Western audience. You know, when a Western audience member approaches a game like Final Fantasy, they see the anime style, they see a little bit of a different style in the health bars and the way fights happen, and it's all very flourishy and Eastern style. And while some people in the West love that style, a chunk of people in the West really don't. You know, they like their Western style games. Yet, Final Fantasy has managed to rise in the ranks through the MMOs through fantastic gameplay and systems to where even people that may not be huge anime fans or people that may not love Eastern MMOs have fully committed to loving Final Fantasy XIV. To where even it's incredible when you see the numbers, it seems that World of Warcraft is now maybe number one with Final Fantasy right underneath it, and World of Warcraft being the dominant MMO in the genre. And some projections have actually suggested that Final Fantasy has risen above World of Warcraft, which is crazy. An Eastern style MMO rising above World of Warcraft in the West. That's wild. And it's why when I think about Lord of the Rings, I see a game that is 15 years old. I see one that has a lot of baggage and history, and one that, you know, when some people approach an old 15-year-old game with 15-year-old graphics, they go, that's just not really for me. Well, I would say that maybe people don't care so much about that if the game plays really well. And so I've got 3 things that I would really love to see Lord of the Rings Online copy from Final Fantasy XIV. But hey, before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to all of you who are watching. Just on a personal, sentimental note, it's been a wild week. I started this YouTube channel like a week and a half ago, and I started really regularly uploading a week ago, and this channel, to me, has really just exploded in popularity. We've got almost 50 subscribers at the time of recording this. We've had over 1,500 views. The Twitch channel has kind of shot way past my expectations, and I just want to say thank you so much. I've always been the guy that's watched other people make videos and play games on Twitch, and I just, you know, decided to take a risk and jump in and see if I put some time into it, if it would be any fun. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I know that it can maybe seem insignificant, you know, pushing a like button or pushing a subscribe button, but it means the world to me. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you that have, and you're all welcome in this community. I love reading those comments, so feel free to drop a comment below. But as we jump back into the video, as we go through this, if I miss something, if I say something you disagree with, or if you totally agree with me, leave me a comment below and let me know what you think, because I love interacting with you in that space. Okay, let's jump into the 3 things that I want Lord of the Rings Online to steal from Final Fantasy XIV. First off, I want Lord of the Rings Online to steal Final Fantasy's story-paced leveling experience. Here's what happens in Final Fantasy. They've got this very famous thing called the main story quest, MSQ, that as you're leveling, if you just level one job or class in other MMOs, you can actually go through the entire game just playing the main story. And that's a good thing because Final Fantasy's story is fantastic. It's really well written, it's well acted in the voice acted scenes. It's a really beautiful story. In fact, I have jokingly and not really jokingly said, I've cried big fat man tears when I've played Final Fantasy XIV because the story is such a great investment. And I think that one of the reasons for that is, as you level, you don't have to go and run off in 18,000 different directions trying to keep up with the level of the story. You can just play through the story. You can just experience the whole thing, and as soon as you get done with one quest, you can jump right to the next one, and you can get all the way to max level by just playing the story quests. I would love for Lord of the Rings Online to steal this. I would love, even if there was an option at the beginning of the game, maybe even just for premium subscribing members, to be able to say, I just want to play the story. And that every time you get done with a chapter from the books, it would level you to the next experience level. That would be absolutely incredible because Lord of the Rings Online has such a great story. But every time that I go to play the story, I get done with one of the chapters and then I'm invested. I'm excited to see what comes next, and then I have to wait another 3 levels and have to go kill 18 more boars and 20 more wolves. And I found myself actually getting more invested in some of the side quests than I am able to get invested into the main story of Lord of the Rings Online, which is a real shame because when you play the story and when you put it all together as one fluid experience, it's really, really fantastic. And I think that if Lord of the Rings Online could steal the story-paced leveling of Final Fantasy XIV and just say, hey, you can get from 1 to 140 by just playing the story, I guarantee you this game would double, triple in population because people would be so excited to just play the story of Lord of the Rings Online, and it wouldn't feel like such a daunting task to try to get from 1 all the way to endgame. All right, number 2, Square Enix very obviously plays their own game regularly. Square Enix very obviously plays their own game regularly. The developers of Final Fantasy XIV, if you watch their developer interviews and if you watch the things that they say, they reference their own game all the time, down to the most minute mechanics of the classes. In fact, it's well known that the lead developer actually plays one of the classes, Black Mage, very famously. He loves that class. It's his favorite class, and he is personally invested into it. What that does is it allows the developers to see the issues with their game from the player's perspective. And what that does is that shifts the priority of the teams when it comes to fixes and changes because they're the ones that are actually playing the game. Now, I don't mean to say that nobody at Standing Stone plays the game. I'm sure a couple of people do. But in Final Fantasy, the lead developers, the people that are working on the game, play it constantly. And I think that it shows that maybe Standing Stone doesn't play their game very often by how much we experience lag in the game. There's this real world-breaking and multiple system-breaking lag that goes on that if the developers truly played and were invested into the game and enjoyed it, they would be like, we got to fix this tomorrow because I actually want to play my caster class without having to watch the bar, tick up at 1 FPS, and then I miss my rotation timing. If the lead developers of Lord of the Rings Online played the game as much as Square Enix's lead developers played, I think we would have a much better game. And so I would encourage Standing Stone and anybody in that production team, get your lead developers playing the game for at least 3 or 4 hours a week. Take some time out of their busy schedule just to say, go enjoy the game, find out what's good about it, find out what's bad about it, and then fix it. Because, all right, the last thing that I really would love to see Lord of the Rings Online steal from Final Fantasy XIV is their ability to adjust to the mistakes that they've made. Final Fantasy XIV famously launched abysmally. They had a horrible launch. The game was terrible. It was laggy. It didn't work. It was broken. And so, in fact, they came out and apologized to their faithful players and completely blew up the world. Like, it was an in-game cinematic that happened where they blew up the entire world and they reawoke the world completely new, and it actually became part of the story, this great cataclysmic event. It was really, really interesting. Well, that has not stopped since launch. What happens is people love Final Fantasy. It's an MMO, so it's going to have its flaws, and there are going to be things that work and don't work. And then people come out and say, and it almost becomes a meme in the community, something that doesn't work in the game. Maybe a class is overpowered, or for an example, the PvP in the game, the rated PvP, wasn't that great. People always were, all the people that played the game really was just kind of said, it's lackluster. It's not that great. It's not that fun. And what happened in the most recent patch? Well, Final Fantasy not only released a ton of new content, but they completely overhauled their PvP system. And they said, we're gonna make it completely better because you, the player, have talked to us about it, we've heard you, we've listened, and we're gonna adjust to the mistakes that we've made. Well, I have to ask the question again, how long have Lord of the Rings Online players been dealing with game-breaking lag? How long have Lord of the Rings Online players been asking for the exact things that I've talked about? You see, an MMO doesn't have to be perfect. No MMO is. Every single one has flaws. But the best MMOs adjust quickly to whenever their player base comes out and says, hey, something's broken, something's not working, it's not playable, it's not fun. When games adjust quickly to the mistakes that they've made, things shift and change. And so I would love to see Standing Stone be able to say, hey, let's take an audit of the things that our players don't like, an audit of the things that keep people away from our game, and let's adjust quickly. Let's put some resources, time, and energy into these things, and then let's adjust. Because if we can keep this thing current, the fact that the world is so immersive and so much fun to be in, and the community is so friendly, will bring people back and keep them there. And so I hope that is helpful for Standing Stone Games. I'd love to hear what you all think though. Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Are you saying don't take any of those or take some more as well? Let me know in the comments below. I love hearing those things. And hey, if you ever want to, join us over on Twitch. We're having a great time over there, but feel free to subscribe as well if you liked it. But let me know what your feedback is, and I cannot wait to see you all soon. Remember, you are more loved than you know, and you are more valuable than you realize. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave it a like. It's totally free to do. Subscribe if you want to see more. And as always, I'm live on Twitch over at twitch.tv/BrightLifeCommunity. We're a community of positive and uplifting gamers. Come find a friend to raid with, grab loot with, and just enjoy life together with. Hope you have an awesome day. Be blessed, and you are so loved and so valuable.